We have been seeing an insane amount of video games released buggy and broken, and it just goes to show that studios do not care about respecting their customers' time or wallets. And now we're finding out that Star Wars Outlaws is going to launch extremely broken on the Switch 2. Borderlands 4 is going to have some big problems at launch, all around the time when the AAA industry is being embarrassed by Silksong. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, we've been seeing a lot of stories circulating that developers are losing their jobs en masse, they're going through layoffs, games are being canceled, and I'm not going to shed a tear when this is the best we are getting. Games like Star Wars Outlaws, Monster Hunter Wilds, Gears of War Reloaded, Snake Eater, even Borderlands 4, all titles with insane budgets releasing buggy and broken. It is completely unacceptable, and if you suck at your job, you don't deserve to have it. And now we're finding out another wave of games are going to be releasing, and another wave of games are going to have a problem. Games like this should not be releasing in such a terrible state. These studios have proven yet again that they do not care about respecting their customers' time or wallets. They just care about pumping out products, and it's probably why so many of them are struggling at this point, because it's so risky to buy a game at release. But even when they end up going on sale months and months later, people are like, there's better things coming out now, I'm going to skip this experience. And then they don't make a sale at all, where if they had delayed their game by half a year or even a year, maybe it would have turned out to be a slightly different situation for them. Maybe they still wouldn't have sold the amount of copies they wanted to, but they probably could have sold a few more. Now, of course, Star Wars Outlaws was a game that when it had released, it faced massive backlash because it was the lowest quality I've ever seen in a Star Wars game. I mean, it was horrendous. It was so buggy. It visually wasn't aesthetically pleasing. The storylines weren't really that good. It was missing a lot of systems and features people expected. And all this time later, nobody's really talking about it anymore. Ubisoft put the most amount of money towards this marketing budget that they ever had for a game. They expected it to do insanely good because it was Star Wars, and womp womp womp, it underperformed. And now it's finally going to be releasing on the Switch 2, and it's not a pretty picture, that's for sure. It says, I played Star Wars Outlaws on the Switch 2 at PAX West last weekend, just days before it launched, and I couldn't believe how bad it looked. Granted, I can be a bit of a graphic snob. I'm one of those people who gets a headache playing games at 30 FPS, but when I say Outlaws looks unbelievably bad, I don't just mean it looks bad to my well-trained eye. Even the most forgiving fan will have a hard time seeing past how muddy and low resolution this game looks. It's your everyday kind of bad. Now, we know that the Switch 2 isn't, a behemoth in terms of the level of quality it can offer to people. It's still 5-year-old technology being sold at a brand new price tag, but wow, does this look extremely bad. Some games do fit the Switch. Some games look amazing on the Switch too. I think that it's a fine console for what it's really supposed to be offering, but I mean, this should not be a game at full price. If we're going to be playing a game at such a low level of quality, I think that the price tag needs to reflect that as well. It says it's unbelievable. I mean, I can believe that a 2024 AAA game runs poorly on the Switch 2, but I can't believe Ubisoft would release a game that looks this rough. I mean, this is just one of the many images that's circulating online, and of course, the textures are insanely bad. There is a lot less going on visually on these catwalks than what was in the base game. The models of the enemies look pretty bad. I mean, even looking at the way Kay Vess's body is and her hand, it just looks really, really bad. And sure, you have to look close at some of these things to really see how downgraded it is, because if you're just taking a very quick glance at this photo, it might not look that half bad, just because like there's a lot of textures on the ground, there is a lot going on in like the trees, but when you really start paying close attention, it looks bad. Never mind when you're actually in the game and it's playing like trash. And it's just unfortunate that people are expected to buy this low level of quality for a full price tag and they think that they can get away with it. This is another article that says, in unsurprising news, it has emerged via GVG that Star Wars Outlaws is the latest port on the Switch 2, which is currently not up to scratch. The team went hands-on with the action-packed game at PAX West 2025, and with the game's release just a week or so away, their impressions are not reassuring. The team weren't even allowed to film any of the footage at all of the game. Outlaws suffered from quite a few hilarious bugs at launch, but runs fine on other platforms, so it sounds like it needed more time in the oven, and you can check out the impressions down below. Now, interestingly enough, this video was private, and GVG now says they were wrong, but I think that's probably because they were threatened to be taken off the PR list for Ubisoft if they didn't retract their claims and retract this video, so that's definitely a major red flag. Now, Star Wars Outlaws isn't the only new game to have problems. I previously had talked about Snake Eater and Lost Soul Aside having issues, but even Borderlands 4 is going to have issues because the Borderlands 4 Day 1 patch, quote, does a lot, Randy Pitchford says, but don't expect miracles from older PC hardware. Gearbox development chief Randy Pitchford said that the inbound Day 1 patch does a lot amid concern about the performance of the looter shooter. We've been hearing reports saying that it does run like trash, which is a major problem. We shouldn't be hearing any story like this about any game that had years and years of development time and hundreds of millions of dollars put into it. It says Borderlands 4 is an official release date of September 12th across the PS5, X and S, and PC via Steam and Epic Games Store, with the Switch 2 launch following shortly after. I bet that the Switch 2 release is going to be god-awful as well. Though it says the Day 1 patch does a lot. That said, the expectation for using a below-min-spec machine should be that the game is unplayable. That the game runs at all on your system is a miracle. That you can get 55 to 60 FPS out of heavy combat is actually incredible given how the engine and what's going on under the hood. Your specification doesn't indicate if you're on SDD or HDD, but this could also explain some of the hitching. It's a big, bold, new, seamless world, and I'm sorry to say that older hardware may not provide buttery smooth performance for the latest gen AAA games, as has always been the case since the dawn of PC gaming. Then why are you sitting here and addressing it, saying, by the way, if you aren't running a completely up-to-date machine, you're going to have problems? It's probably because you know that there are going to be a lot more PCs that have issues with it than you're letting on, and maybe that's me just personally reading too much into it, but with the way studios disrespect our wallets at this point, I don't think it's smart to ignore warning signs like this. And of course, a significant portion of the PC gaming audience plays on low-end hardware. I mean, for me personally, I have a behemoth of a PC. I've got a very strong one, and even my computer can struggle with brand new games that are coming out, like something like Lost Soul Aside, which is crazy to have to think about, that unless you're running a computer that's thousands and thousands of dollars, you're going to have problems. Now, I get if you're running a $1,000 budget PC, yeah, you're most likely not going to be able to even run the game at 10 FPS, never mind with a buttery smooth experience. But the way that these developers are addressing this just doesn't, sit right with me. And of course, there have been many games to release over the past couple of years that have had similar issues, like Monster Hunter Wilds, for example. When it initially released, it had a lot of issues. Then they ended up fixing those initial problems in a patch, but then they broke 10 more things. We know Snake Eater released with problems. Lost Soul Aside was very buggy and glitchy and definitely not what people expected. Gears of War Reloaded also launched missing features and having some technical difficulty. So we're just not talking about a very positive experience for the AAA scene right now, especially when we're comparing it to something like Silksong, which was made with a core development team of 3 people, and it took them 6 years to make, but it is perfect, except for some of the gameplay balancing problems, which people have criticisms with. I personally don't, because I expected it to be really tough, and I love really, really hard experiences. But we are talking about them having more competition than ever and them putting in the least amount of effort possible. So I'll definitely be keeping my eye on the situation, but it seems that more games are going to be releasing buggy and broken, and you should probably withhold your pre-orders. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.